Adekhat no khunke you ya den wushutuki adekhat hakahi. Please forgive me, my relatives, my those who are seated here, if I had let you people for sitting too long. Please forgive me. Yisiku tlachishandain ye hawun likat wuhan tlangit khasati yutliatka so yuqatan ti hanak wukut hanak kaudichak atraya yayagi kha adayetagahtune dad ade ade hati in ya all of you, if you folks know, a sad thing has happened to our people. Just a few days ago, we had another fluent speaker pass. Achaya adayechakachten yat at. This is why we're going to talk about this or speak about it today. And I was trying to get some things situated for that. How our people respond to these things? How our people do things accordingly? This is what I want to talk about today. Um, Akhlil kohas tluk nakhadi to hayadi hastu tlil to hastu ish kukit takhwe khositi achaya akhirki yuek akhwal you um their grandparent, their grandfather, and their father, he was from the box house, Kagwantan from Sitka. This is why I address them as uh, my grandchildren or my children. Ade ade hastu yeah. This is how much respect I have for them, or the way our people are. So I guess we'll use um, the relationship terms and so expand more on how these relationship terms are so important to our people, why it's important to know these things, and why our ancestors did things a certain way. Um, so we'll do a little bit on that, and then also forgive me as well. I was out on vacation. I was in Mexico for a couple of weeks, so that's why we didn't have class. So for during Valentine's, but kanach kutche ha shune lingit khasati to how you tangi ade how you ade kuye kagan tlach kanach kutche shune the way our people would say things long time ago, the way we talk, it's really becoming a rare thing now. The way our people talk and address one another, how we respected one another. You in this Cajun Sunny down a walk. Uh, my uncle Austin, he would always say that this is how we show each other respect when we do these things, when we address the hurt in somebody, when we address somebody's feelings. He said this is respect, and this is what we are showing when we respond to somebody. That's how he explained it, and that's the best way I can explain it as well. From his very words, that this is how our people did things. And so I'll get I wanted to use one of the videos and then from YouTube I was looking at earlier. I don't know if I can share it, if I have to be a co-host or if I can share now. It looks like I can. Well, go ahead. I'll go ahead and open up with that because it's a clip from 1982 celebration, um, and it's of Anna Katsik and explaining the Shungu KD some of their history. And she said that they had so many of them, so many of the people pass on. She said it felt like we were practicing for the real thing, payoff party, kulik. That's how she was talking, how she was addressing everybody. So that's why I chose it. I chose it because she's talking about how she's feeling hurt, and then the clan, her in-laws, and her father's people come to talk to her and address her feelings. They using the stories, and so this is what I want to show now.
Because these songs that we're using, each one of us, I believe, are very precious to us. Thank you very much for your attention.
Will I ever respond to Mrs. Katzik's by Mr. George Davis? George Davis?
Thank you. Nakan. Yachaya. Yachkaksi. The tongue the tongue. Utakwe. Yati. Atayo Katanki. Take away at the Yuktayik. Yukatanki in precision. Partly scores. Keep our Taichi of Tact. Dushtawa. The tide to Kutanit Kawa. Yes, staff and the the tide to Achtak the Shutters at Nuch. Partly scores. Ateushasa Utani. Yai that there were Yakaksi. Yate Yukoyatan. Aitinaha. Tashawatakat. Atuhutiham. The classes across. They has to set the Wachi. Kate. Ushke has died to the Kuya. Ajate Pasaja Okaksi. Yatihan. Jatavak Pasaja. Jayasiyate good. Don't who Hashun. Victor Hart. Yakokat. Lingit Class, the sign. Pons. You Yakashun. It died to a Goshati. Yanahan the Hawa. Jindi was Hoopa. Yashawa Dakat. Atuhita Mita. Ita Kakas. Astuajini. The Indian Nakishka. Jiskadi Kosashka. Ayakakakasawe. Ahun. Ahun. Ak good. The Saya Hokat. Ya Jiskadi Hurricane Sach. You were nighting. Dujin. Jiskadi Kanasach. Ushtakanawajusia, Jiskadik. Think it on it upon. You that you fit a tangent, yes, Kaka. Achan. Yai that there was Yai. Akaksi. Ustakatinawajusia, Chitakan Pute. Chitakan Pute away. Ustakanjusia. Pashkavada Hipkosnu. Yay. Jay Tatu Tai, Ia Tau, Jago Saku, Takwang the Sock, Takeaway, Kaktekaya, Kakposhi, Ie Tunuki Wakini, Yewe, Ata, Achyaeun, Achatas, Achisha Sitikane, Kunatis, Jagobek, Yukotan Yeksane.
This will not be a dance, it will be a chant that's sung by we as the Thunderbirds, and it's in memory of our ancestors, in memory of my grandmother, Mrs. Mary Casco, my uncle, William Planat, my all our other relatives.
Was everyone able to hear that? So, what he did was the basis of, kind of the way things go when they're making these speeches, is he's addressing how he's related. First thing is that's what he does, is he's establishes the relationship, and then he addresses the hurt and the feelings they're feeling, and then that's kind of what he said in the beginning. Akhun Khusi, my older brother's daughter. I akhjaya dutandatani wuti. You have heard her her thoughts. You have heard how she is thinking. Is kind of what he said, and then he used some parables from the Chilkat area that he knew to uplift her and to reassure her that um, her feelings and her hurt they aren't going to be let down. That's the kind of the gist of what he was saying. He speaks a lot of old Tlingit in there, so it's kind of some things are hard to translate. There's no English equivalent, but uh, he really did a thorough job on addressing her feelings. And there was another one that I couldn't find, um, where he was talking. Austin Hammond was talking. It might have been the second performance, but Austin Hammond was in there and he addressed her well, and it was appropriate that he addressed her because it was her father's people. She's child of Tlukwa Khadi, just like I'm child of Tlukwa Khadi. So I guess that's a word we can use, is we're both Buchna Yadi, child of the same clan. So let's see. Wuchna Yadi, meaning we're child of the same clan. She's child of Tlukwa Khadi and I'm child of Tlukwa Khadi. So long time ago, you weren't allowed to really talk or say bad things about any. You weren't allowed to. Those things you didn't say things like mean things. Because we lived in such close quarters with each other. Maintaining peace was very important. But when it came to teasing, um, if you're a child of the same clan, you could tease each other, or like siblings. Your siblings in Tlingit culture, you're a brother or a sister because you're the same child of the same clan, Wuchna Yadi. So those things were okay. I heard a few elders say that sometimes when you see two people from a different clan, but they're both child of the same clan, and sometimes they really act like brother and sister in a way they tease each other. And so I remember watching a few like that, and one of the grandmas leaned over to me and that she told me, "Wuchna yedechasiti achua wushas tu hue." They're both child of the same clan. That's why they're teasing each other. So that's something, a cultural thing, I guess. When you're child of the same clan, you can tease someone even more so. You know, we all know that in Clinket culture, humor is a very important thing, and the more we tease you, the more we love you. But yeah, so Anna Katzek and I were both child of Shukwa Khadi, and I think it was some of it was edited out actually. That was the same one or that I was looking for, but that one didn't show Austin, the one I was looking for, because he had said some things in there too that were very important in one of them, and maybe it was a different one actually, different performance or different celebration. But yeah, it's not in the second one either. So it must have been. I'm thinking of a different dance group maybe. But I wanted to bring these things out so when it comes time, like we're, you know, even myself, I'm coming to the class very heavy hearted. You know, all our speakers are, they're fast leaving us now. They're all 80s in their 80s or 70s. They're pretty up there now. And if you watch some of these um, YouTube or some of the archives, you look into some of the archives or some video of them really talking about a lot of things that our people have forgotten, and this was even in the 80s and 70s. And so, how much has changed since then? They were feeling as if the culture was already dying with them, and they really felt that. They really felt it. And as our elders are like this last one, Ethel, with her passing, it's each one is very heavy hearted. And so, what I want everyone to understand is how our people address these things and how they would do it. It's not a template. Um, this isn't a template how to do it. Just to explain how each person was different. And another one, my grandpa Andrews, Danny said, he said the training I received from my uncles was uh, in the culture. He said, "This is why I know my language. I know how to express myself in a public setting. And these things are very important. And it's something I think at those generation, were some of the last ones to go through it, where it was they sat them down and explained things, and um, I want everyone to kind of get a little more grasps and understanding of the way our people did it, why, and so it sheds more light on how much love and respect our people have for one another. Um, because a lot of people say, as a clink of people don't cry, we don't cry. It was very important to our people to cry and let it go, let things go. We knew that it was part of healing, which is why, we have the kuik, and this is what they were doing. It's like Anna was saying. She said at one point before George Davis spoke, she said, "It feels like we're practicing for the real thing." That's how she's. And if you heard part of before they switched over, she said these songs are precious to us, and they are. They're all past ancestors' feelings of loss. That's what those cry songs are. Somebody felt so much loss and burden of losing somebody that their feelings really got the best of them, and the song came from that, and that's what those cry songs are. The words are saying. That's why when I feel like we've lost a lot of that understanding of cry songs and the meanings of it, because they're meant to, feel those feelings so we can let them go at that party, and that's what we're symbolically doing. I was reading some of my auntie's books, and one of them said the party was the last rites of passage for our loved ones to move on to the next world. And so that's what I always refer to it as now too. Is when people ask what a kuik is, I use some of those elders' words that they said that it was the last rites of passage. We're letting them move on to the next side, because they said if we cry too long, the river, symbolically, they're still on this side with us on this side of the river, and our tears are creating that river. And so the harder we cry for them, the bigger the river gets, and they can't go on to the next next world. So that's what the party does. Is we're letting them go. We're saying we're not going to cry no more for you. This is our last one. And when you hear them do the Yash Kashu, that's what they're doing. And I've watched some of the old tapes, and there's even some of the old tapes where the whole clan will throw up their arms when they get done. Ishkashu, hui, and they throw their arms up. They're symbolically throwing their grief, and they towards the end when the clan that is the hosts, they're singing their last cry song. The the in-laws, the father's clan, the grandparents' clan, they're all encouraging them. It's a time where everyone's encouraging each other, and they'll say things to encourage them. They'll say, "Yande yanit luck, you're almost there. You're almost reaching the end. Gantude na de ti kwan, gantude na de ti kwan. Throw it into the fire now. Throw it into the fire now," is what they're telling them. Symbolically telling them to throw their grief into the fire, to let it go. So these are a lot of the things that our people are forgiving. I forget a lot. I'm watching, like I said before, I watched a few of these celebration tapes, and I forgot our people would do some things just because we don't do it anymore. It's like they say, out of sight, out of mind. I forgot we did it because our people just stopped doing it, so it was out of sight, and then seeing it again. Here's another example. Nowadays everybody says, "Oh, we have to do a spirit song by 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, we have to." And I always get up, and I always, if it's on the same side, or I speak to my dad, I'll walk up to him and sit, and I'll tell him, "Helka wikustin chak, just daddy day away wake chak wa kids kids awa." I told him, I said, we didn't have clocks a long time ago. We didn't have the clocks. It wasn't our thing. It's just a newer thing. And I said, we used the tide. We used the tide. I remember as a kid at the A&B Hall in Haynes, my dad's clan, whenever they would do a payoff party, they would always, at a certain point in the party, they'd have me run down to, geez, they would have me run down to the beach as a little boy and ask me to go ask where the tide is at. And then that's what reminded me of it. One day at a party, I remember thinking to myself, uh, I don't remember ever doing things at 3 o'clock. So I had to. Then I researched my memories. Went back through my memory bank, uh, and that's when I remembered my dad and my uncles telling me to run down to the beach from the A and B Hall in Haynes. They would tell me to run down to the beach and check the tide for them. And then that sparked a memory in David. David Katzik was there same time, my older brother. He said, that's right. He said, it comes from the story of when Raven let out the tide. So a lot of things, the reasons why we do things, is it's still there. When he was alive, he remembered that too. Um, let's see. He said when Raven was letting out the tide, it's when he asked his nephew, Gush Kawada Wikits, Gush Kawada Wikits, where is the tide at? Where is the tide at? And his nephew replied, it's only down to my knees. It's only gone down, half a foot. And so that's when Raven, when him and Tide with the Tide Woman who held up the tide, he was wrestled her down, and he made her let the tide go all the way out. He did this until she fully let the tide out, and that's why the tide has gone out now. And this is why during payoff parties too that we use that. Where's the tide at? And so that was my job as a kid at parties growing up that we had to do that. And so nowadays we got tide books, but we still can't lose those things like that and the understanding of why our people really address each other's feelings. Our people were psychologists. We knew when somebody was down, you know, how to cheer them up. We knew there's so much about our psychological well-being that we've lost a lot of that, and we're slowly getting it back. And my hope is that our people, we won't be back to the way we used to, but we create something that is good to move forward with what they left behind with their teachings, not to create something new. There's still stuff that our people have, but that we use what they left behind to create something new. That'll be good for everybody. Something that the whole nation, our whole nation, accepts on. Is that's usually how things are accepted, as though or within us it was like city states. Like I don't know, how have you folks seen when they kill the blankets or when they bring blankets out at the party? Have you folks seen them do that? Yeah, yes, no, a few of you, yes. So at, at the parties, at towards the end of the party, just before you bring out the money, you bring out blankets. And a long time ago, it was skins. My grandpa Andrew said it was skins before that. And this comes from the story of Costine. He said she didn't want to leave because she felt she was the reason why they were being chased out of Glacier Bay, so she didn't want to leave leave their homelands. So she said, "I'm going to stay back. I'm going to stay with them. I'm going to stay back with the houses." And while they were doing this, the people were rushing. They said the glacier was coming at them as fast as a dog could run. That's how fast the glacier was coming. But they stopped, and she stopped and told the people, she said, "I'm going to stay behind. I'm going to stay here." She said it felt like it was her doing, because that's she committed the taboo. And she when she stayed there, my grandpa Andrew said her brothers her brothers came to her, and as they were coming to her, they had skins and furs, And when they were coming to her, they were starting to place them on her, and they'd say "Kostin Kade, Kostin Kade" on top or onto Kostin. Adachaya kudzati yadat yaya nefichi yut akade to yut akade. And from here, this is how it became into being this part of the party when we bring out blankets and skins or even they used to bring out bolts of fabric, felt, anything that they could use, women could use or the men, they would bring it out for them and they'd place it on that place it on them. And so this is where this came from. Costine, when she, but before that, we didn't do that. So certain points in history, our people adapted things um, into the parties because something had happened, major happened in our history like that. And from there, just almost all of Southeast, when we do parties, that's what we do. When we bring out the blankets, we'll call out the names of the ones who are gone, and then we dance behind the blanket with them. And it's always the most, you bring out the, so let's say somebody, let's say it's the widow or widower, or it's always the widow or widower. You never say their name during the party. You just bring up and give them their gifts. And let's say they have a blanket, a special blanket. You always treat them special, the widows or the widowers of the clan who lost. And you dance behind the blanket. And as they're dancing, they used to sing 8 spirit songs. There used to be sets of 8. Each spirit song were sets of 8. Have you folks been halibut fishing? Anyone been halibut fishing? So when you're doing the halibut, when you're doing those dances, the first song, it's always up and down when you're mimicking the buoy, the buoy bouncing up and down. And then towards the end, when it's time to release the feathers, when you're reeling up a halibut, just before it starts to break water, you watch the halibut come up and they start really hitting hard. And that's what you mimic when you're dancing that dance, is you're mimicking that halibut coming up to release those feathers. So you see as a halibut coming up, they come up slow like that, and as soon as their nose breaks the water, they really start to thrash around, and that's what we're mimicking. That's what I've heard several people, several elders say that's how you dance it, and it was many of them were so good. They said that even when they would dance, it looked like the dust. If some of the down feathers came out early, it looked like they would float right above them because they could dance so well that the feathers looked like they would just float right above them as they were moving until the last one was the last part of the song was ready to let release the feathers. And then after that last song is sung, then they take the corners of the blanket and wipe the foreheads of the ones who are dancing, and they um, give it to whoever that blanket is destined for. Already you plan it ahead of time who's going to receive what. And so if it's the widow or widower, then you give it to them, and you don't say their name. And then when you're handing it to them, if they're not the widow or widower, let's say my dad did something for my clan when we were in really time of need, then I would give him a special blanket and I'd say Kin Kadunik Jide to the hand of Kin Kadunik. And then just like any party, you hear them Ha De, raise their hand, and you go hand it to them. And that's the job of the Nakani. Nakani goes and hands it to them. So there's a lot of things that are very important, and there's a lot of significance in these parties, and even just addressing someone's feelings is very important. This is what it's all about. We're addressing the hurt from our people, the person who is hurting the clan, the children, and because we follow our mothers, we really cater to the children during that certain time. And I know when my gram passed last 2 years, last year, 2 years ago now, 2020. I remember uh, she was like my mom, my gram that raised me and cake. And I remember when she passed and it came time to do certain things. My cousins that were there, they asked me, they said, Paul, we need your help trying to remember some of these things. I said, I can't remember either. And it's in that moment I remember why our opposites do things for us, because we're so, our emotions are so high that we can't think of simple things that have been told to us over and over and over again, no matter how many times it's been told to us. And my gram talked to me for a long time. Every morning with coffee, she'd tell me things, and she may have told me stories countless times over and over again. And I still couldn't remember in that time that I needed to remember. I still can remember. So that's why it was important for our opposites to do things for us, so that we had to treat everything with very utmost respect, and that's why our opposites are very important. Uh, you know, when it comes to a payoff party, you can't pay yourself. We're all on the same side. And so all these things were designed to be done in public and have somebody's um, approval, so that if something was forgotten, then somebody can come up and whisper and say, "Don't forget this or that," and then they correct it and do it in public. So we were always held accountable. Everyone was always held accountable for things. And so my grandparents, the Kohos, were grandchildren of Suknakhadi on my dad's side. Everybody knows the song, the Raven Pete. They call quote unquote Raven Peace songs. And that was my great grandfather on my dad's side that composed them. Kawusa. His name is Kawusa, or Quisan was his other name. He was known for composing a bunch of songs. He composed that one, and he even he treasured his grandchildren so much that he even put the screen from his house in my grandma's house, the canoe prow house. So that's how much our Charlie Joseph, coming back to the ones that were lost, that we lost just recently. Her dad said that even from long ago, we treasured our grandchildren. We give those things that are even precious to us, we give it to them as grandparents. And so that's what my grandfather, our great grandfather, did. Kawusa, he loved his grandchildren so much too that he put the coho screen that he was in charge of inside of the canoe prow house. And there are certain dances you do when you do these things too. It's all ceremonial. Lots of meaning in everything. Our people didn't do things, just any old way. I remember one of our grandmas, Lily White. Call her grandma because she's she's Chukanadi, and that was my grandfather's clan. So just out of how much we respect her, we call her grandma too. But she said her mom used to tell her, she said, "Don't do anything just any old way. If you don't listen when I'm teaching you these things," she said, "you're gonna run around like a dog, behind closed doors." So that was the importance of. She was trying to stress the importance of really listening to what everyone's saying, and living in America and then recently traveling to Mexico. I really see how easy it is for us to zone out when we don't understand something. We have we're able to just, no, I don't understand it. Gonna turn on my phone, or I'm gonna go and you know listen to something I do understand. In Mexico, I didn't hear any English, hardly any English at all. And so it forced me to really, and my phone didn't work, so I couldn't zone out on my phone. So it forced me to really listen to what they were saying. And within a couple of days, I was able to understand a lot more Spanish again. Like I said, I think as a kid, my dad was a Spanish minister, so we heard Spanish growing up. And then he would just, I would reply in Tlingit if I understood what they said. But it brought me back to some of those things where it forced me to listen, forced me to sit there and really listen to what they were saying. And I understand why our people would say that. Really listen to what's being said. My grandma, I remember my mom's mom saying that. We were at my brother. This was his memory. He had to use the restroom while somebody was making a speech, and he said, "Grandma, I gotta use the bathroom." And she said, "No, wait till he's done talking. He's saying something important." And so he had to sit there and wait, and so he never questioned it again. And that's how important these when people were making speeches, how important it was to sit there and listen. And Andrew Johnny brought that up again. He said, "How would you feel that if don't let?" He said in the beginning, he said, "Don't let time bother you. Don't let the time bother you for however long you're sitting. How would you feel that if you were expressing yourself, how your feelings are, and somebody got up and walked away from you because of time?" And he's brought it back again. Don't let the time bother you. Don't let it bother you. It's 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 important. The best thing I can say.